On January 26, 2012, Amnesty International released a 4-disc, 76-track set featuring covers of Bob Dylan's music in celebration of Bolt's 50 years of service to human rights. On May 28, 1961, Peter Benenson, a British lawyer, wrote an article entitled "The Forgotten Prisoners" in The Observer on his outrage towards the imprisonment of 2 Portuguese students for making a toast for freedom. The article was republished in newspapers everywhere and started a worldwide movement called An Appeal for Amnesty 1961. This movement became a permanent organization on July 1st, 1962 in hopes of improving human rights for the world. Over the past 50 years, Amnesty International has gained a reputation as an internationally recognized group, earning Nobel Prizes in the areas of human rights and peace, and has spoken out on many famous human rights issues, including the civil rights movement, the imprisonment of the likes of Nelson Mandela and other noteworthy activists, and other crimes against human rights. A few months before the original grouping of Amnesty International, a little-known folk singer straight out of Minnesota began performing at coffee houses in New York City's fabled Greenwich Village. As he grew in popularity, his politically infused lyrics that spoke out on human rights issues throughout the decades became iconic to the human rights movement and music as a whole. What do you think of when you first think of Kesha? See if this changes your mind.
Getting the chance to record a Bob Dylan song for Amnesty International was a massive deal for me. I was looking through the lyrics and reading them and listening to the song over and over and really just trying to make it as personal as I possibly could. I pulled up my GarageBand on my laptop and just sang through the song once. And by the end of it, I was just like crying hysterically alone on my bed.
This clip is part of a mini documentary on the making of her song. My initial reaction was, how does a girl who wakes up feeling like P. Diddy deliver such a dramatic performance? But as I watch it, I feel an emotional tone that appeals to pathos. The audience, in this case anyone who is a fan of hers or of the CD, probably feels the same as I do throughout the piece. The organization is a behind-the-scenes format in which she tells how she made the song and how she feels in making the song. The next source is an article by Marcia Yearman for the popular online news site Huffington Post. Huffington Post is known to be somewhat of a liberal news source which fits in with Amnesty, a liberal organization. The purpose of the article is to get news out about the album and about the organization. It is structured into mainly an interview with the Director of Special Projects at Amnesty, Helen Garrett. Besides talking about the album in the interview, Garrett talks about Amnesty's plan moving forward and recent issues that they've been involved in. The next source is from Amnesty's official blog, Human Rights Now. The article is written by Stephen Lawrence, a producer and director of many documentaries for TV. The purpose of the article is to highlight the importance of the 19 women who lend their voices to the album. The piece is structured so that the writer talks about how each track makes him feel. The piece is directed towards women to empower them, but also to listeners so they notice to listen for the female artists in the album. The Associated Press put out the next source to inform the audience, those into the album or the various artists on the album, of how it was like to sing Bob Dylan's songs. It features Joe Perry of Aerosmith, Ziggy Marley, and Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, giving their thoughts on how they approached his music. This clip is Tom Morello's thoughts on his song.
I don't get nervous for much, and one thing I've always been blessed with is a tremendous sense of false confidence. So when it came time to tackling a Dylan song, I'm like, sure, man, I'll rock that. I knew I wanted to do a radical reinterpretation of the song, and given my rich baritone voice, that was a given. The original, I did the song "Blind Willie McTell," which is one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs, and the original is a haunting piano and acoustic guitar ballad. My version sounds more like Massive Attack meets Leonard Cohen.
The iTunes description is another great source for information about the album. The main audience is people looking to buy the CD or specific tracks off the album. After briefly mentioning what each sale goes to, the description is a positive outlook on the CD, mentioning stellar tracks on the album. The description is positive about the album because it hopes that the audience will buy the CD in the end. The next source is Miley Cyrus's music video for her cover of You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go. The purpose of this piece is to create a video for a gigantic star who is on the album and get younger fans interested in Bob Dylan's music and Amnesty International. The video is set in a rundown apartment and pictures Cyrus and backing crew isolated in the apartment singing the song. This connects with the idea of being lonesome in the song. The audience could be Miley's fanbase and fans of country music. Here's a brief clip of the video.
Oh, you're gonna make me lonesome when you go. Oh, you're gonna make me lonesome when you go.
Although the album is pretty well received, there are some critics. A critical source of the album is the music review of the album from CNN. This colloquial review emphasizes that there are beautiful tracks on the album, but there are also too many guitar-picking melodies that make it sound redundant. It is organized in a fashion that it says the good things about the album before it becomes critical, but switches back every so often. The audience is one who is thinking about buying the album or someone who is generally interested in music. The next source comes out of the LA Times by Randy Lewis. The purpose of this piece is not only to shine a light on the album, but talk about the legacy of Amnesty, Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie, and political music. The audience the author is trying to reach out to are fans of some of the items previously mentioned and just of music in general. The piece is structured so it bounces back and forth between the album and the backstory of all the parties involved in the making of the album. The Sydney Morning Herald provides an international source on the album. In the article, Warwick McFadden tells his country about the album by telling them where Amnesty and Dylan came from. He then talks about the tracks on the album and the artistry of the tracks on the album. The audience is all international fans of Dylan's music, primarily from the land down under. The last source is the album artwork itself. At first glance at the album, you are drawn in by the colors in the picture of Dylan. After that, you see the text that tells you that the title and what the album is for. The audience is anyone looking at the CD, and the purpose is to draw people into buying the CD or listening to it.